Contoso, we need two file folders. One is receive X12. This is a shared folder with write permissions again for everyone. This is where Fabricam's BizTalk Server setup will copy over the X12 message. This is the receive processed X12 folder where after Contoso's BizTalk Server has processed the X12 that you received from Fabricam, it will be dumping that processed X12 message here. So we'll first start with the receive folder. Again, like you see in the scenario, the receive folder will pick the X12 message using an EDI receive pipeline. So I go to Contoso. I already have this receive folder. I go to the receive locations and I look at the properties. It is picking the messages from this location, and this is the same location where the send port on the Fabricam side copied over the X12 message. Again, I'm using an EDI receive pipeline here. Similarly, like you see in the scenario, we need 3 send ports, all with send pipelines. So we'll go back to the machine and see the send ports that are created. Send X12 will process the X12 message and copy it locally under C:\messages receive processed X12. It uses an EDI send pipeline to do so. Similarly, send 997 will copy it to the shared folder on the Fabricam side, receive 997 folder, and it's also using an EDI send pipeline. The send TA1 has the same, copies it over to the receive TA1 shared folder on Fabricam using an EDI send pipeline. The thing to notice here is how do these 3 ports figure out which message to process? How will this send X12 only process or only copy over the X12 message? Similarly, how will this copy the 997 and how will this copy the TA1? Let us look at this. Let's look at the filters. So look at the filter on the send X12 port. It is bts.messageType is equal to blah. The thing to note here is the last part of the message type. This filter is telling BizTalk that use the send X12 port to only transfer the message of this message type, and this message type is for the interchange. You notice that the message type for 997 is different. So this send port will only process the 997 messages, acknowledgements, and similarly send TA1 will only process the TA1 acknowledgements. So now we're done with creating the send ports. Let's start creating the party for Fabricam. Again, I'm on Contoso, but I create the party for Fabricam because Fabricam is a sender. I name the party as sender. Look at the properties here. Here you see all the 3 send ports are associated with the party. So I open the EDI properties for this. Now the thing to understand here is this party is being set up for Fabricam. So Fabricam is a sender of the original interchange. So there are some properties that we set under the party as interchange sender, because this is a party that is sending the interchange over to Contoso. But this party is also going to receive the acknowledgements back, right? So it is also a receiver. So certain properties will be set up here under party as interchange receiver. So if you see, if we start with the party's interchange sender, I set up these values here. ISA 5, 6, 7, 8. I set them to them and us because that is what we see in the sample pure.txt message. So when the EDI receive pipeline receives a message, it does the party resolution based on these values. So the EDI receive pipeline matches the values of ISA 5, 6, 7, 8 on the message with the values of ISA 5, 6, 7, 8 on the party. So when the match happens, it understands that okay, I have to use this sender party for processing the message. It then uses the values here for GS2, ST1 and target namespace to determine the schema of the message. Because party as interchange sender, again like I said, Fabricam is sending it and the Fabricam is expecting acknowledgements. Under party as interchange sender, if you click here, act generation and validation, you notice that generate TA1 and generate 9 and 7 are selected, because for selecting this, Fabricam is saying that I need these two acknowledgements to be sent back to me. Like I said, Fabricam is also receiving the some messages like the 9 and 7 and TA1. The properties for them will be set under party as interchange receiver under ISA segment definition. Again, like I said, like we saw on the Fabricam side, these values that you set here will be used by the EDI send pipeline to create the outgoing message. So it will use the values under ISA 5678, the CRLF, and GSNST segment definition to create the envelope for the outgoing interchange. Okay, so this is we are now done with setting up a party for the sender, because the same message that is being used there, sample po.txt, will be the same message that is being used here, because that's the message that will come here. We will deploy the same schema like we deployed on the Fabricam side on the control side as well. So if you see, if you go to the BizTalk server setup here, under schemas you will see the schema is deployed. Also there is already a reference to the BizTalk media application. So we are now done with the basic setup. Let us now run a quick test to see how the message is processed. Before that, let's ensure whether that all the send ports and receive location, everything is on. So because everything is under application 1, I'll just go and start this application. Okay, so you see send port started, receive locations enabled, host instance running. Let's do the same thing on the controller side. Okay, send ports all three started, receive locations enabled, host instances running. So we are done with the basic setup. We are done. Everything is up and running. So we'll just drop a request message. So like I said, this is our request message. Let's see what the message is. So you see the value of ISA 5 is ZZ, 6 is them, 7 is ZZ again, 8 is us, right? That is why if you remember on the party configuration, we always said ISA 5, 6, 7, 8 to them and us, and Z and Z respectively, so that the party resolution happens. I'm going to copy this message and copy it to C:\messages receive X12 on the Fabricam machine. Refresh and it disappears. Let's go to Contoso and see if the message appears where it was supposed to appear. So the message, if you look at the scenario, the message is supposed to finally appear and see process X12. Actually, if you notice, the message is first copied to receive X12, but because the EDI receive port is enabled, the moment it would have shown up here, it would be consumed by the receive pipeline. So it's in a fraction of a second that message comes and goes. But finally the message is copied over to receive process X12. So that's where we go and look for the message, and there it is. Look at this message and let's do a quick comparison with the message that we initially sent. So this is the initial message, sample po.txt that we sent. Look at the values here, just take a quick cursory glance. ZZ, them, us, blah blah blah, GS, PO, them. This means it's the purchase order, this means it's an 850 message, everything. Now look at the message here. PO, them, 850, them, us, everything is the same. So you see that the message that we sent on Fabricam is transferred over to the message to the console side. Now let's go and see if Fabricam received the acknowledgement. The acknowledgement is supposed to be the 997 have been covered in the C:\messages receive 997, and there it is again. This is how a 997 looks. Again, easy them and us, because like I said, whatever you set under party as interchange receiver would have been used to create the envelope. So it used this to create the envelope. These are the two envelopes that got created using the party as interchange receiver values on the contour side. Again, ST is 997, which means it's a 997 acknowledgement. Same, let's go and see if we got a tier 1. There it is, a tier 1. Again, using the same values. So this was an end-to-end scenario where you dropped an X12 message from one party. It was received at the other party end, and the sender party received the acknowledgement. You can do some more verification by looking at the group hub page. Let's run a query again. This was the last one that got sent. So it says ACK expected. I can go deeper here and I say, okay, show me the transaction set details. I say, show me the content. So this is actually the message that was sent. So if you see, this message has no ISA header, no GA header, and this is what is actually dumped in the message box. That's why when I said the send pipeline creates an envelope, it creates the ISA and GS that you see on this side. You see the difference here? There you only see this part of the message. It's called the transaction set part of the message. You don't see the ISA and GS headers. So the send pipeline used the values that we set in the party under party and receiver, and created the final output that you see on the Contoso side. Similarly, if you go to Contoso and you look at the group hub page and you run a query, you will see 3. You see 3 because it is actually processing 3 messages. One is the X12, one is the 997, and one is the tier 1. Again, you see this, the same message. Let's look at this is the 997 message, again without ISA and GS headers. So let's understand what actually happened. How did this message flow happen?